Braggadocio brand Poison and Pullman brand Frying Pans present The Adventures of Scott M. Priz, Private Eye out of Hyde Park, Chicago. Braggadocio Poison, now in children's formula. And Pullman brand Frying Pan, the #1 choice of lonely bachelors outside of New York City. Scott Priz, the internet's most famous private eye, brought to you by Eddie Nalen, and starring the 2-Bit Players, with special guests Grichini, Chickini, and Hippini Prizinni, and Jeremy McCamic as Scott M. Priz, private detective out of Hyde Park. And now, the adventures of the Stolen Alderbodies, or How I Lost My Lucky Mallet. It was hot in Chicago that August. Hot enough that the asphalt from the streets, that cheap Bridgeport crap made by Bridgeport Construction, would melt and stick to the tires of your car. You drive down Halsted Avenue on the north side to Pullman Town on the south, and have to scrape off a few inches of fine Chicago street. Well, it was one way to integrate black and white neighborhoods. That summer, in addition to being the hottest on record, was also notable for one of the more infamous crimes in Chicago history. Someone stole 3/4 of the Chicago City Council. Nearly every machine outer body was seated at his desk when trapdoors opened up beneath him. Trapdoors leading to 38 separate tunnels. Tunnels which all led to one very large truck. The truck sped off through a secret tunnel beneath the City Council chamber, which fed into Lower Wacker Drive. A high-speed chase ensued, with the truck full of corrupt politicians speeding along towards the city pound with a dozen police cars behind it. It went down the circular path of the pound like it was descending the circles of hell, turned a corner, and disappeared. The police cars didn't know where it went, and nobody ever found the truck. With most of the machine politicians missing, all but Fast Polly the dollar stock were taken. Some guys are just too slick to be caught by anyone, and he jumped out of the way in the nick of time. The reform and decent Alderbodies were left in charge of the city council. His Honor tried to shut down the proceedings, but a 12-1 supermajority overrode his measure. For once, good and honest men like Leon Dupree had the chance to make laws and govern. The whole basis of Chicago government was turned on its head. This did not sit well with the machine or its ally, the Chicago Police Department. It mobilized a full quarter of its strength to find the missing Alderbodies under the command of the famous Lieutenant O'Malley, who had achieved distinction with his revelation that the Prizinni brothers' mischief was really the work of one man, a low-level bureaucrat who worked for the Department of Homeland Security. He had been on the case for 2 weeks before they called me in. I suppose I should introduce myself. My name is Scott Priz, and I work as a private detective out of the Hyde Park neighborhood of Chicago. The pay is lousy, and the company I keep mostly treacherous, but I wouldn't do anything else, even if I was ordered by Lieutenant O'Malley. Occasionally, on particularly tricky cases, the CPD calls me in to work as an outside consultant. Remind me sometime to tell you about the adventure of the 7 dailies. I'm still not sure if we ended up with the right one. I got the call from Commander McGowan, a Bridgeport hack whose only redeeming quality was the checks he gave me. Whenever he spoke to me, I got the sense that he viewed me as a banana bacon sandwich made out of chartreuse ham and rotten bananas. He told me to come on in. They had some work for me, and if I was lucky, I might just make my rent this month. I chuckled at him, put on my good gray fedora and my lucky trench coat, and made my way to police headquarters in the near south side, using the red line instead of worrying about the pavement on my tires. I winked at Sophia, a city crime photographer who worked for the Chicago Daily News on the side as I approached the captain's office. I pretended to get lost just so I could ask her for directions. "Excuse me, miss. You wouldn't happen to know where I could find an Irish police captain, would you?" She was gorgeous. I think the prettiest woman in Chicago. Slight of frame, with an Irish build and Italian curves. She was heavy in all the right places, especially up top. No, a little higher than that. With an intellect that showed me that not all Ivy League educated yahoos are yahoos.
I can point out a dozen within spitting distance if you're so inclined. What are you looking for here, Seamus?
Oh, like Cicero said, honey, the first duty of a man is the seeking after and the investigation of truth.
I prefer the old proverb they like to quote. Like ready to consorts with like. If you're looking for truth, you're in the wrong town. Hold it right there. So photogenic, Priz. Commander McGowan is the third door on your left. Just remember that one falsehood leads easily to another.
Well, that would explain how this town got built. Thanks for the time, Sophia. I left my card on her desk. Captain?
Yeah?
I hear you Bridgeporters need a little help. He scowled at me and gestured to close the door. I did, and sat down in the small chair that let him tower over anyone unfortunate to be called into his office.
The city of Chicago has decided that it's necessary to call on some supplementary resources for the successful completion of an investigation.
Ah, is that how you're phrasing it nowadays? In my day...
You ain't ever had a day, Priz, and I got a feeling you never will. Doesn't mean we won't use you, but don't think of us as us asking for your help. Think of it more as your civic duty.
What case are we talking about here?
You're smart enough to know which one we're talking about. We need help. I mean, some supplementary resources to deal with the disappearance of the Alderbodies.
I thought you had Lieutenant O'Malley and a quarter of the force looking for him. The Chicago Tribune said today that you guys had broke the case wide open and expected to apprehend the kidnappers any day.
Well, whenever we do catch them, it will be any day. So the Tribune was telling the truth like it always does. Unofficially, we've run into a few snags.
Snags?
Every man that's gotten close has disappeared. Or worse.
Even the lieutenant?
I'm afraid he's in the worst category. But he remains in charge of the case and is allocating the resources under the department's control as he sees fit.
Wow, that fit together. The lieutenant had too much clout to shove aside, even if he was worse, whatever that meant. Any CPD cops assigned to work on it would fall under his jurisdiction, while I was just a hired gun, free to do as I please. What's worse mean?
You see, we can't sort out what's true or not, but we do have a few leads we can give you. Job pays $500 a day plus $50,000 if you bring him back alive.
You got my interest. You have any idea who did it?
We have evidence that it was the Prizinni brothers.
The Prizinni brothers were a band of hooligans whose mischief had caused the city a lot of strife before Lieutenant O'Malley locked them away, and discovered that they were just one guy working out of the Department of Homeland Security. I thought you locked him him away for that incident at O'Hare.
No, there was a typographical error by an officer who's been reassigned to the Harrison district. The gentleman who we believed to be the Prizinni brothers was actually John Dillinger.
I thought he was shot in 34.
No, there was an error on the part of the FBI, but just to make sure we make no more mistakes, we took the liberty of reenacting the shooting at the Biograph Theater. Rest assured that Mr. Dillinger will never bother anyone again.
I hope that you don't ever mistake me for John Dillinger.
I hope you don't ever give us reason to. The lieutenant will see you now. He has access to the video that we were sent.
You sure they're not Dillinger?
Rather, Dillinger was just shot yesterday. Don't you listen to anything I say?
I smiled and left his office. I walked by Sophia's desk, out of my way to the lieutenant, but right on the way to where I wanted to be, and said, "Live as brave men, and if fortune is adverse, front its blows with brave hearts."
Remember that the strictest law often causes the most serious wrong.
I smiled at her as I walked towards Lieutenant O'Malley's office, and what she was talking about ran right into me.